Hi, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode on the podcast. I'm very excited for today's guest. We've had him on the podcast before a long time ago, and I absolutely just love bringing back guests that I have really deep and amazing conversations with and that are super in alignment. So I want to welcome back today Michael Tranmer, who is an author, a professional engineer, and a TEDx speaker. He's the author of Satori Ananda, Awaken to Happiness, which is a memoir about his conscious awakening following the sudden end of his marriage. Michael is a leader in Western Canada in the highly specialized field of coastal engineering, where he designs and builds infrastructure along the British Columbia coast. Michael's TEDx talk is called Reengineer Your Life and Awaken Your Happiness, and it is available on YouTube now, and you can find it in the show notes. So I'm super excited to bring you this conversation today with Michael. We talked about so many different things and about the journey that brought him to where he is today, how he had that transformational journey to get from that place of feeling so low into really creating a life that he really wanted to be living. We talked about his book and the inspiration behind it. And we also talked about some tips that you can implement when navigating a pivot. So I found that this was a really deep conversation, and I'm just really excited to bring you this conversation with Michael today. So I hope you love it as much as I do. He's so wonderful, and I just love every single time we get to connect. So without further ado, let's dive into our conversation today. Hello, Michael Tranmer. I'm so excited to have you on the podcast today. Welcome back.
I can't even, usually I can match people's excitement, and typically I'm pretty good at this, but every time you blow me away. So freaking good to see you again.
I know, it's so good to see you too. And truthfully, my energy is just playing off of your energy, and that's how it's going to go the whole episode. So I'm really excited.
I've been feeding it to you all week.
Yeah, seriously. I love it. I love it, love it. So for those who are listening right now, we previously had Michael on the podcast a while back. And so I'm going to really quickly go into detail. So you all know on here that I'm a life coach. Michael was my very first coach, okay? And so many things have evolved since then, but I hold the time that we spent together, your mentorship, so deeply in my heart because I would never have gotten to where I am without you. So I'm very excited to have you back here, and I would love if you could just share with everyone a little bit about your journey that's brought you to where you are, and then we'll dive into all the fun stuff.
But before that, can I just honor and share with you and your listeners that I'm an engineer, so I keep track of things. So I know the first time we did that first podcast was almost 2 years ago. It was like May or June of 2019.
Yeah.
And we recorded it, or we tried to record it on this totally dodgy like internet software thing. And I was walking around at the beach, and it totally didn't work the first time. We had to reschedule and do it the second time. But now fast forward to this episode. And I recognize when we're recording now, you've now done over 100 episodes.
Yes.
And for the folks that don't see what goes on behind the scenes, things are pretty slick compared to where they were almost 2 years ago. So kudos to you, Simona. I love you and appreciate you. And so it's just so great. Makes me feel so great. And it's just generally so great to see you still so pumped and enthused, and your people are lucky. They're in good hands.
Thank you. That's so kind. Thank you. Thank you. So let's dive into a little bit about your journey. I know you've been on the podcast before, but for those who may not know about your story and about your journey, just a little bit of a backstory on how you've gotten to where you are today.
Yeah, for sure. And how do we end up wherever we are in each moment? For me, the story goes, I'm out here in Vancouver, BC, was living the pretty good, settled life. I met a girl at the end of university, and we moved in together here in Vancouver, and we started our life together. We ended up getting married. I worked as an engineer for, it was over a decade that I was working and she was working and I was working. We got married in Whistler, had the Maui honeymoon. Beautiful. And both of us really just settled into our lives, and things were good, and things were comfortable, and we were living what we thought was the dream. But we slowly started to drift apart, and it was a Wednesday. I remember when I came home from work, and all this time while things were good, they weren't great, and I was always sort of subconsciously really unfulfilled in my work, and really also my relationships, but I never knew what to do with it. So I'd just come home and complain all the time, and to whoever would listen, I would just complain. But I remember it was a Wednesday in November, and I came home from work, and my wife was sitting on the couch, and she told me that she was no longer in love with me.
Wow.
And then so began the journey, because within a couple days she had moved out. I was going to work Googling how to get a divorce in British Columbia.
Oh my God.
And then all of a sudden, even though we were on this path, and it was good but not great, but all of a sudden everything was gone. My whole identity of who I was, or who I thought I was going to be, and where I was going, there was just this complete blank slate that I never ever wanted, but that's really what I had. And so I had to really figure out who I was now that wasn't my story, because I all of a sudden had this complete blankness, and that began the journey to figure out who the heck I was and what I was going to do now.
That's pretty intense, to be honest. Like, that's pretty. And here's the thing too, it's like, it doesn't always happen that way, right? Like, a lot of the times people will just stay stuck in things that make them unhappy, and in feelings that make them unhappy, in relationships, and you wake up 40 years later and you're like, who even are you? You know what I mean? And so the fact that you were able to sort of pick yourself up after all of those different like scenarios happened, and really go on this like transformational journey to bring you where you are now, what do you feel like now, with all the knowledge you have behind you, what does it mean to you to be, physically and spiritually and mentally fit and sound, if you will?
Well, it that sounded very poetic and beautiful, but it got really ugly, and it continues to get ugly and now more than 3 years later, because continuing on from that story, really, my number one goal was to get happy again.
Yeah.
So I started doing all the things, right? I'm reading all the books, listening to all the podcasts, watching all the videos, actually taking advice from friends for the first time in my life. And it was as hard as it was, what it was, Simona, like, I had never felt that amount of pain before in my life. And at the same time, that really cracked the ego open. That really cracked my shell. That really instantly injected me with some awareness. Mm-hmm. At the same time, I would get clarity on why the relationship had ended, and how I had contributed, and who I was previously. And there were a lot of hard truths that got learned through that process. And that hurt like an MFer. But at the same time, by getting that clarity and piecing together these better knowing of myself, I would also have these really incredible, beautiful moments of freedom and clarity and bliss. But it was this real up and down at the time. And after a couple months of that, I kind of got tired of that. And that's when, kind of like your story goes as well, that's when I started working with my first coach. And I could really leave that victimhood behind of what had happened, and instead just start focusing on going forward and who I was going to be and what I was going to do. And all this time I had been, for the first time ever, writing and recording everything in a journal, everything I was learning, everything I was reading. And I started to share all this online. So I started to really love writing, and then I really started to love speaking and sharing. And that's now how I've gotten in these two other worlds of, again, working as an engineer, but also the writing and the speaking and doing all this stuff and bringing it all together. So to wrap it up, to be physically and emotionally and spiritually fit, constantly a work in progress, but I would have never have really gotten there if I didn't have the fortune of hitting that rock bottom.
I love the way that you just phrased that, because you have a choice when you hit that bottom. You know what I mean? Like, you have a choice to stay there or to do something about it. And a lot of the time all the time, it's not easy to pull yourself out of that kind of situation, and people will stay there for so long. But what I like that you said is that you started looking to like listening to other people's feedback and like insights. It's really about getting out of your own head and like listening to somebody else's perspective, that you know the things that other people say are so impactful, and like eventually some little thing sticks, and then it's kind of like, okay, this is going to be fine, you know, I can find my way out of this, even though it's like a roller coaster ride to do so. But then you end up living this beautiful life of being at peace with all of the emotions that you have, which is so incredible. Because you know, even now, if you have sort of an off day or a down day, I'm sure you know, you let yourself feel those feelings, and then you just know that it's going to be okay again, you know. Right.
If only it was again so eloquent as that. But it's I had such a bad week last week or the week before, and again I'm still learning this about how to really sit with the emotions. But you nailed the point exactly previously, that was really the choice. Like I knew I didn't want to stay on that living room floor perpetually in that state of hurt and pain. Yeah. But I also knew as much help and as I was asking and getting from other people and all the books and podcasts and all the meditation and all the rocks and all the crystals and all the stuff, nobody was coming to save me. Nobody was coming on the white horse. Mm-hmm. So I knew I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to stay on the carpet. I didn't want that just to be it for life. But nobody was coming to save me. Exactly. So I had to pick myself up and keep crawling through those dark places of all the stuff that I was learning about myself and all what I was learning about the relationship, and realize, okay, I like some of those pieces. They're going to come forward. But that other stuff, we're going to have to change that.
Exactly. And so is this where you drew the inspiration for your book?
It was such an intense period of time, and about half a year really, that it was really intense. And like I mentioned before, for the first time ever, I started journaling because there was nobody else to talk to. And as an engineer, I had to figure out what had happened so I'd never feel that amount of pain again. So I had to write it out. I had to think about it. But I, slowly started accumulating this huge collection of journals. But I knew I'd been through such a rapid transformation. So to appreciate who I was before all this, I was quieter, but definitely quieter. But, I wasn't giving interviews. I wasn't writing books. I wasn't speaking on TedX stages. I was ego-driven, self-serving, non-communicative engineer. All those things helped contribute to the end of the relationship. And to get that knowing of that is challenging. But the transformation that occurred after the breakup, and just by doing all this learning and really learning to be free and express all these things that I was learning, I knew the transformation was so radical that I had to share it. I just had to share it. Because I knew I had gone from a really, really dark place to an at times really peaceful and beautiful place. So it was up to me. If I had all this information in my head and how I had done it, it's no good if I just keep that. So it was up to me to then take the next 2.5 years and learn how to write, really, because I didn't know how to write a memoir. So I had to learn how to do that. But it was up to me to be able to learn how to clearly and concisely articulate all that I had been through so it could serve other people.
I love that. And while you were writing your memoir, what are some of like one or two, if you have them off the top of your head, some things that were challenging about writing the book that you had to like navigate or work through? Could be like actually sitting down to write it, or sort of reliving those experiences over again.
Yeah, both of those in the beginning, but I hammered out the first draft pretty quickly when I was on this trip through Central America over 2.5 months. And all I would do, I was like, dude, 2 to 3 hours every day, 1,000 words.
It's perfect.
And after 2.5 months, then I had this I had it more organized and concise, but I was pretty good at that part. During that, of course, it was hard to go back and relive those painful moments. But for me, the hardest part was just the constant rejection and disappointment and crushed expectations, and at each step of the way over the 2.5 years, because it wasn't good enough, or the editor that I wasn't helping me enough, or I lost money with this editor and it wasn't progressing fast enough, and I didn't know who was going to help me. It was just this repetitive keep on goingness that was, it's just being relentless, right? It's just being resilient, because I knew the vision I had. I didn't quite know it was going to look that freaking amazing, but I knew I was doing all this for a reason, and I'm pretty stubborn, so I wasn't going to give up. But it was really just sticking with it. And we've all been there, where we're trying to do something and we're trying to accomplish something, and it's just not happening in alignment with our expectations. But if you just stick with it and you keep going, you hold that vision alive. And for me, I know what a good book is. I read a lot, and I knew I wasn't there. And I knew I wasn't there. And I knew I was getting closer. And I knew I was getting closer. And then as soon as I got where I was like, all right, here we are. And then it was full steam ahead to get it out.
I love that. Okay, there's two things in there that you said that I really like. The first one is just coming off that last point that you just made there, that, you knew that you still had work to do and you were like good with it. You know what I mean? Because a lot of the times we're like, no, it's good. Like, what more could I do? I've done enough, whatever. But then what I also really like that you said there is that you kept going even when it was hard. Like, you kept going even after all the rejection, which is the piece I think that not a lot of people realize if you've never written a book, or with anything in life, right? It's like, if you face rejection, some people are so easy to just be like, well, it must not be for me. You know what I mean? But when you really have that dream, like you're saying, like that's so key.
Well,
awesome.
it wasn't good enough. And so there's the vision of what I wanted the book to be and what I wanted to do. And there's where it was after the first draft. There's where it was after the second draft. I wanted it to be done, but I also knew it wasn't good. It wasn't good enough. It wasn't measuring up to the quality that I want. So once you get clear on what your vision is and what quality you want it to be at, then of course it wasn't ready. I hadn't done the work. I hadn't learned how to become a good enough writer to match what I wanted to do, to match the life that I'm creating.
Exactly. Oh, that's so good. And so what did it feel like when you finally finished this book, when you finally had like the first printed copy? Take us through what that felt like. And when you launched it, what was that like?
Well, Simona, then I learned my next hard lesson of life. I was so depressed afterwards. It was,
no.
Oh yeah.
Why?
Oh yeah, because so it came out about half a year ago in September, from when we're recording this. But really what I had done during the 2.5 years that I was writing it, like, this was my companion. This was my new wife. This was the thing keeping me going. This was my project. This was my excuse to stay in on Friday and Saturday nights, which I enjoyed, but it really helped me avoid other parts of my life that I could have been moving on with.
Yeah.
So absolutely, I actually recorded, I was in Kingston, my hometown, when I did hold the actual first copy, and I was with my mom in her beautiful backyard overlooking the St. Lawrence River, and the box came from Amazon, and I said, Mom, record the thing, and record me, and she was pointing at her, and she didn't know how to use the camera. I'm like, come on, seriously? I'm like, this is important.
Classic.
But we figured it out, and it was surreal. It was quite surreal, and it was a real book, and I held it, and it had words in it. And I was like, all right, awesome, good. On to the next step to get it out and share it with people. But that was a really beautiful moment. But when it got launched to the public a couple of weeks after that, and then, the week or so beyond the launch, I had just such a huge crash, because I had, of course, all these expectations of what was going to happen when the book goes out, and instant fame and celebrity and all this stuff that, of course, didn't happen. So there was that piece, but then there was the piece of, what am I going to do now? What's driving me forward now? So there was a huge crash after launching the book.
That's really crazy. And it's interesting too, like when you said it at first, a part of me was like surprised, because you've done so much healing. But at the same time, like I could totally see how that would happen. You know, you put your whole life into something for so long and then it's just done and you're like, where do I go from here?
Yeah, fairly common with many creatives. They put something out there and there's an expectation of what's going to happen. But like everything, everything's information, right? So I learned. So then when I did the TEDx talk, I'm like, dude, you're going to put a ton of energy and focus into doing this. You're going to do it and it's going to be what it's going to be in that moment. But just know that in the week afterwards, you're going to be tired. You're going to feel let down, and your life, you're going to have to find something else to help you move forward. So just know that once you hit that peak and you put that thing out there, there's going to be a little bit of a letdown afterwards. So I went into the TEDx recognizing that and was better prepared to handle what was out the other side of that mountain.
Ah, okay. So tell us about your TEDx talk. What was your talk about? I'll link it in the show notes so people can listen to it because by the time this airs, I think it'll be available online because I think that there's sometimes a little bit of a delay. So, what did you speak about and what was that whole experience like? How did you prepare for that? And I'll stop asking questions because I could just keep going on and on.
Oh, I love you. It was great, and I can't wait to hear yours. And let me know when you want me to connect the dots to help you get on stage. I can't wait to do that. I think we're doing it this year. That'll be great. Look forward to it.
It sounds fun.
It is fun. It's fun, and but you can tell like if things are fun, then you do them. Like if this isn't fun, then don't do that. But to me, the TEDx was fun, and it was the talk is called "Reengineer Your Life and Awaken to Happiness," because the whole point, obviously I've gone through a transformation. I'm going in a different direction, and I've discovered these passions of writing and speaking and connecting authentically with beautiful humans like you. And it's great. It's fucking amazing. And I would have never discovered that if I had not hit my rock bottom. But the challenge is, can others, if they want to tweak parts of their life, can they re-engineer their life without hitting the rock bottom? Can you do the steps that I talk about in the talk to change if your relationship or your job is not taking you in the right direction? So that's what the talk is about. It was super fun, and like anything, I knew it was an opportunity. When you get on the TEDx stage, it's kind of serious. So I do what I do, and it was 100% focus and energy on that for the month or two before the talk. I hired not one, but I hired two coaches, some of the best public speakers and acting and movement coaches in Vancouver. And I worked my butt off because you can tell the talks that have been worked on, that have been prepared. And I learned so, and that in itself was a healing journey and an emotional journey and then a personal development journey, because there is so much that goes into being on stage and commanding the audience and moving on stage. I just have such larger appreciation for singers and actors and anyone that is in any sort of performance. It's absolutely incredible. And I just touched on the surface, but I went full in on it, and it was so incredible. So the talk was pretty fun.
Oh, that sounds amazing. I'm so excited to watch it. I have not yet. Is it available right now in this moment when we're talking?
No, not yet.
No, okay, I didn't think so because I was like, hold on here. Like, I feel like I would have watched this. Like, this is something that I definitely would have watched. What was it like being on stage like during COVID? Did they have different rules or?
Yeah, it was all done within the rules. So there's no audience, but the other speakers were in the room, so that was good.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was great to have a live audience, and it was great to be around other people. But yeah, there were all the masks and keeping the distance and all that.
Totally.
But yeah, certainly not the same experience. So looking forward to coming out the other end of this and being around the humans again and being in a room when people are feeling something.
Yeah.
Because nobody really remembers what you say, but they will remember how you make them feel.
So true.
And if you can make people feel something and connect with something in your story, it just really helps people feel like they're not alone and with whatever they're going through. and then you connect them up to the inspiration of helping them see and create whatever they want to do in their life. It's magic.
You took the words like right out of my mouth, helping people feel like they're not alone. That's one thing that always goes through my mind. And I feel like it's so important. And you know, in terms of when you're on stage and you're sharing your story, what are some things that like make it resonate? You know what I mean? Like all the things you've learned, like if someone is interested in speaking, like what's one or two things that they should maybe focus on to help them?
Public speaking was a fear of mine previously as well, but I just really got pulled into it because I wanted to share, and then I started having fun sharing, and then it's me expressing myself and connecting and seeing people. When you help a concept land in someone's head and you change their perspective for the better, and you can see that in their eyes, it's magic. It's incredible. But to step into to be a really powerful and effective speaker, like I mentioned before, it's about helping people feel something. So you have to do the work and be comfortable with going to those places. People in the audience aren't going to go to those emotional places unless they feel safe that you can guide and lead them there. When I'm having a conversation with someone at dinner and they feel safe with me, to just by me being here in my presence, not judging, not thinking, the ego's gone, just being 100% present, then people are comfortable with opening their hearts and opening their mouths and sharing their incredible stories that I continue to hear from people I meet all the time. But it really is that presence on stage, which is the most important thing. To be comfortable, just like we're doing now, just having that pause in between, but we're still connected, right? We're still in each other's presence. There's nothing else going on in the world. What we're doing after doesn't matter. What we did earlier today doesn't matter. But this is the most powerful thing in public speaking. And you can learn it. It's 100% learnable. And it's just really about being comfortable with yourself, being fully grounded in your presence, getting out of your head and into your heart.
That's beautiful. I feel like I just got hypnotized and meditated at the same time as you were speaking.
That's what all the girls say that I go out with.
That's how you get them, isn't it? No. I love that so much. I know one thing that you're really big on is that accountability piece and that responsibility to yourself. How can someone start to become aware of this within their own selves if they're not already aware of it? Like, at what point do you start to realize what is ego and what is fear? But then also, how do you get out of that and into how you really want to be acting every single day?
We always talk ourselves out of the things that we want to do. Whether it's fear or whether we're lazy, a lot of laziness going on, but really it's the fear of stepping into unknown places, and going into the unknown is where we're going to get our dreams from. Let's just be honest. I want to be a New York Times #1 best-selling author. I want to sell out BC Place Stadium. I have no idea how to do either of those things. Who I am right now cannot achieve those things, but I have the intention. But I also know it is going to require going into some very uncomfortable places to help stretch and grow myself to become the person that can deliver enough value that 50,000 people would show up. Mm-hmm. But I recognize that is a bit of a journey and that I'm not there now. And I'm opt for, like, this is going to give me something to do for the next however many years. But that is going to require an incredible amount of more skill that's really going to have to get unleashed from within me. But I think that the point is, if you've got the big dreams and you have the big goals and you have the big ambition and you have the vision, it's one thing. Yes, we need to do the meditation. We need to have the positive affirmations. We need to have the vision. But then you got to get to work. And people don't like to do work. They like Netflix. I don't have a TV. I don't watch Netflix. I haven't had a TV in 3 years.
Good for you.
I prefer to create the content that will one day be on Netflix. That's exciting for me. And that's not exciting for everyone. But when you see and appreciate like who the top singers and the top actors and just the top anything, the top athletes, they do a lot of work behind the scenes, a lot of work. And I think it's really the fear of working that hard and just really not everyone is up to work that hard.
I'm really glad that you said that, and I'm glad that you touched on that, because this is something that I see a lot of right now in the coaching space, but I feel like it's also translating into different areas too. The fact that, you don't have to work hard to get to where you want to go. And I'm like, what? Like, I don't understand that sentence. Like, and I see all of these different things online about how much money you can make in your business, and I'm like, but where's the story about the years that it took you to get there? You know what I mean? Like, where's the story of you've had 3 failed businesses before that? You know what I mean? Those are the things that are impactful. Those are the things that change people's perspectives. It's like, so I love that you said put in the hard work, and it's a nice reminder for everybody that, as an actor, you're putting a lot of work in every single day. You're probably going to hundreds of auditions to land 1 role per year. You know what I mean? But you do it for the dream. I think that's just so key, because if you don't have that passion at the core of what you do,
that's it. Like I do it because, like, to me, speaking in front of 50,000 people is going to be amazing.
It's going to be amazing. I can't wait to buy my ticket.
I'll give you one for free.
I will be there. I will be there.
Damn right you'll be there.
Oh, I'm so excited. I can't wait.
It's going to be amazing. But to me, that's fun, and that gets me excited, and it's going to happen. And yeah, I can meditate, and it's already happened, and I already feel my body and all that. But yeah, it's not going to happen until I keep getting up every day and doing the motions and taking the steps and moving and walking towards that. But it's, yeah, I think a lot of the, and some people argue, well, if you're doing what you love, it's not hard work. You're just being pulled in that direction. Yeah and no. I mean, don't get me wrong. If rejection hurts,
of course,
and doing the reps hurts. So it's not all just sunshine and rainbows, but it really is the journey that counts. Because just like I learned through the process of writing the book, when I got to the end and the book came out and people bought it, that was good, but it was way more fun to build the thing, to create the book and learn how to write, and looking back, face that rejection and have something to write about, to have the journey to write about. So now I've got all these dreams and milestones, sure, BC Place, New York Times, but I know when that happens, that moment of joy will just be super fleeting. So this is me just talking to myself. Like, I need to do what we can each and every day as we are marching towards our dreams and goals, to really enjoy that journey, because that's what these moments are. That's what this life is. Piecing them together, the good ones and the bad ones, whatever good and bad means these days, right? I think we are just being, and we're all just feeling. Some days our emotions are high, some days are low. I'm not sure who decided which ones are good and which ones are bad, because the perspective I've changed recently is that, it is not all sunshine and rainbows. But who's to say if I'm having a bad, depressed day, like, is that good? Is that bad? It just is. What can I learn from there? I know it's going to pass.
I love that so much. That is so key, you guys. Everyone who's listening right now, like, that is so true, because it's not about getting the thing. It's about enjoying the moment as you're going through it. And it's about actually enjoying what you're doing. And, like, even through days that maybe are not as great. Oh my God, that's just so key. Like, it's something that I always have in the back of my mind, but the fact that you just said it out loud, it's like, what's the point if you're not present in it? Regardless if it's, sunshine and rainbows one day and the next day is a harder day.
Yeah, and we have to do the other things to make the money sometimes that we don't always love.
Exactly.
Can we be fully present in in doing those tasks and not constantly be wanting to be somewhere else. But to me, I love doing this. I love speaking and like learning at the same time and learning from you and connecting with you. And like time, I don't even know what time it is right now. Time is standing still.
Well, I can tell you for sure every time I get on this podcast, time doesn't exist. I like look up and I'm like, oh my God, like what is happening? You know, it's crazy. I'm curious, what are you working on now? Like, I mean, you've accomplished these two massive milestones. So, you know, are you maybe going into like speaker coaching or, you know, book author coaching or any of that kind of stuff? Are you kind of like done with the coaching world and seeing where the journey takes you?
I'm going to a third place.
Where?
I'm going into engineering coaching.
What?
Yeah, I'm
Cool.
dancing this, but it's interesting. You know, I've been getting a lot of messages about, you know, how did you write the book and how did you do the TEDx, and there could absolutely be a space and I gotta think of a way to share that, but actually, you know, I probably won't because it doesn't bring me too much joy to do that. So, you know, I want to I come on experiences and podcasts like this to share how the book was created and then share how the TEDx was created. But I don't feel pulled to create a program around that. You know, sometimes you just do and create things, and what you share with others is the product out the end, and that's good enough. Exactly. I don't need to. It is a complicated journey to write a book. There's a lot involved to do a TEDx, and maybe one day I will sit down and articulate how that went through. But what I'm dabbling in now, in addition to the engineering work that I do, is bringing in this mindfulness and this leadership and this personal development, to be honest with you, into the engineering world. Because I know what the engineers are like, because I am an engineer and I was an engineer, and I know of certain parts of our brain that are really, really awesome and dialed in. But often, this is me, first decade of my career, the communication and the connection and the expression are not there. But if you can awaken that side of an engineer's brain to help them clearly articulate all these complicated things that they are doing, and if you can help them connect with other engineers, and you can help them powerfully stand in front of audiences and lead their meetings and phone calls, that is exciting. Because that is a transformation that I want to be part of. So I've been doing these different talks, and I'm going to offer a couple beta programs, but it's needed and it's fun. And I like engineers. I like how they show up and they're organized and they always show up on time for meetings. You live in this other space with these, with writers and speakers, you know, they're kind of like, hey, well, you know, I'll come when I want, right?
And you're like, but it's 5 o'clock. No,
but I'm like, I can run a tight schedule here. We got things to do.
I'm kind of the same way. You know what I mean? I'm like, oh.
I know you are. That's why I like you.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, if you say you're going to be somewhere, you just have to respect people's time at the end of the day. You know? That's how we get along. But I love that coaching for you. That's so aligned, and you got so excited when you were talking about it. So
yeah, I know. And it took me a while to get there. And I really,
it does.
During my journey, you know, I had to really get away from the engineering world. Fully got out of it for a while. And
it's like you have to stop hating it so that you can learn to appreciate it and then come back to it with a different perspective.
Boom. Oh, well said.
Thank you.
Well, nailed that one. Yeah, no, I'm excited for that. And I'm, you know, I'm also learning about the other part about writing books is then learning how to sell books, which is a whole different animal. So I'm learning about that, you know, being patient with it and making some expensive mistakes as I tend to do, but learning. And I just have a vision and a feeling of something amazing happening with the book. So I'm connecting with the right people. This woman I'm interviewing tonight, she's literally like the Gretzky of memoir writing. And I can't believe that she's actually going to come on and talk with me live on Instagram later tonight. And I can't believe it's happening, but it's sort of situations like that are going to connect me to the right people that I know to help give my book that magical boost.
Absolutely. 100%. Well, we're going to put a link to it in the show notes in here. So everyone can just go and grab a copy of your book.
It looks like this. It's called Satori Ananda.
What does it
Awaken to Happiness. So Satori is Japanese. It means flash of enlightenment. Oh. And Ananda is Sanskrit. It means the bliss of being. Ooh. So I read those two words out of an Eckhart Tolle book pretty much in the month or two right after the breakup, I was reading all these books. I was trying to learn and get happy. I was really trying to understand how this awareness was developing in my mind, how I was having all these different thoughts and where the heck they had come from. So I read these two words and I'm like, they kind of just fully explain and describe what I've been going through. I've been having these real moments of clarity, these real moments, flashes of enlightenment, just for a peak. And then, but during that moment, like we've been doing now, being fully present, that is an ultimate feeling of bliss. So those were two things that I really were really resonated with me. So they just naturally became the title of the book. And then they became a tattoo. And then I was told you cannot use those words as the title in your book because nobody knows what they mean. And then I'm like, but I already got the tattoo.
Oh.
but then I eventually came back and it's a perfect title. The cover's amazing. But yeah, it essentially starts with the breakup and ends with a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful trip through Central America and a beautiful meditation in Costa Rica. And it's just that transformation from a really dark and hard place to a better one, full of hope and love and joy and connection. So for anyone that is going through, it's not just for breakup, but any sort of loss or confusion in their life, or they don't know where they are, where they want to go, you're not alone when you read this book, because it's, well, it may not be your exact story, it's the same feelings and the same pain and the same loneliness, which is absolutely crippling, resonate with a lot of people.
It's true. It's really true. It's exactly it. You like totally nailed it. Like you don't have to like think of any book that you've read that you liked. It's not your lived experience, but you resonate with the emotion behind it and what happened, and could be very similar. Like, what I mean? Someone else could have experienced something very similar and they'll find that transformation and that comfort in your book, which I absolutely love. So I'm excited for people to check it out once this goes live. But this is my last question for you. And you might remember from our first time we did this. It's a question that I ask all my guests when they come on the show. And it's, how can someone create a little more happiness in their day, every day, starting today?
It's such a beautiful question. A little bit more happiness in our day, starting today, every day. I think it's just really to slow down. So many distractions, so many things bombarded at us each and every day. We're all trying to get somewhere. We're all trying to have goals. We're all trying to pick up the kids or whatever people do, or go to work, or go where are we going? There's nowhere to go. Nowhere to go. Because once you get there, there's gonna be somewhere else to go to. So for me, it's just really to slow down. And of course, meditation is huge. But with everyone working from home these days, one of the best things that I do most lunch hours here in Vancouver is I get to go out and walk on the seawall and just be in nature for that brief moment. And I'm staring out at the sunset right now, and it's so gorgeous. That makes me happy. Leave your phone at home. If you only have 5 minutes, go out in the yard and stand by a tree. Your life will change. Find that moment. Find those moments for yourself in the morning or at lunch, or whenever you put the family to bed, or whatever it may be. Just get those moments for yourself. And if you can do 20-minute meditation and an hour walk at lunch, all the better. But slow down, find the moment, and if you can, do it around an amazing tree and be in nature.
I love that so much. For those who are listening to the podcast instead of watching it, Michael has this beautiful piece of art behind him. It's just so stunning. And it's a tree with like beautiful roots, and it's like gold and black. It's so stunning. So maybe you should pop on over to YouTube and just check it out. Michael, where can all of our listeners find you? Because I know they're going to want to learn more.
Yeah, I appreciate you so much for this, Simona, and love to connect with all your listeners. I spend most of my time on Instagram, michael.tranmer, TRANMER, or my website, michaeltranmer.com. Will connect us, yeah, and say hi. I mean, we're all just humans on the other side of these screens and books and talks and things. And the best part, Simona, about the book is getting those messages every couple days or whenever they come in from people that are reading it, and they're like, "You're telling my story. I feel your pain. Thank you. I'm not alone."
Wow.
It's incredible.
That's really powerful. Amazing. Thank you so much, Michael, for being here today and for sharing all of this incredible knowledge and just love and energy with us all today.
Thank you. Love you. Appreciate you so much. So stoked to see you keep doing this. And I can't wait to come back for episode 200.
Absolutely. See you at episode 200. It's going to be a yearly thing. I love it.
Sweet.
Amazing. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning into this week's episode on the podcast. Be sure to connect with both Michael and I. Let us know you're listening. Let us know what you loved, and we're super excited to connect with you. Don't forget to grab his book. It's at the link in our show notes here. And remember that happiness happens when you're least expecting it. Well, it looks like we've made it to the end of this episode. I'm so grateful for you tuning into this week's episode, and I cannot wait to see you over on the next one. If you loved this conversation and this topic as much as I did, please feel free to leave us a rating or a review wherever you're listening. It takes just a second, and it is so important for us so that we can make sure to deliver this content to those who need it. I'm wishing you the most beautiful day wherever you are in the world, and remember that happiness happens when you're least expecting it.